Hi, it's Paul Antonelli here. Welcome to another episode of the Ideal Business Program. Part of this process and what I love to do with business owners like yourself is help you create the ideal business, your ideal business. Okay, so today's topic is, do you really want to work Fridays? It's an interesting one. As business owners, we build a belief system that we just have to be at it all the time, which means that, and having built a business, if you've been in the process of building a business, it's all absorbing, just pretty much takes control, takes over your life. And in the early days, there's so much to do and so many things to consider that it just gets you fully absorbed. The thing to consider is whether or not do you actually believe that the success of your business or you getting there quicker or achieving better results is linked to the amount of hours that you work? The short answer is it's not really. And we have a belief system that, if you've got a high work ethic and you're not afraid of just putting in the hours and doing what it takes, the chances are it will absorb everything, your time frame. But it's not just time, it's also mind space. Your head's always in the space of thinking about what's next and what's going on there, and there's an opportunity over here. And sometimes that's needed, particularly when the business are at the early stages or there's some things going on that really need some input. But it's not really, I don't believe it's really a sustainable way to exist. This podcast at the moment, you can see my backdrop. I'm up on a rise near in the Northern Territory, still travelling around. Just camped up here last night, had a fire, beautiful spot, had a bit of rain, so you can see some clouds in the background. And so this podcast is being produced in this rather remote location. So just jumping back into it. So, do you really need to work Fridays? So let's, I've engaged with a lot of different business owners about what motivates them to get into business. And, the drivers and the motivators, by and large, the same. If, for example, they have a young family or an older family, or they're in a relationship, a lot of it relates to being able to not only provide for your family or your kids, but also be able to spend time with them and do stuff with them, develop deeper relationships, experiences, all those sorts of things. The thing that somehow gets lost is in the process of building a business, because it so absorbs us in what we do, we lose sight of the fact that one of the key drivers for us was to spend time and have an impact on people that we love and people around us, whether it's your children, your kids, your partner, your friends, your networks. And so I realised after, and the reason I asked, do you really want to work Fridays, is a long time ago, I basically stopped working Fridays. Why did I do that? I'll just explain maybe what my thinking was. This was going back over 20 years ago, be 22, 23 years ago. I had the manufacturing business. It was all absorbing. A number of factories around the place, over 100 staff, chaos going on in every direction. And from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, it was all absorbing, as you can imagine. Lots of issues going on, far from what I would consider an ideal business for me. Great learning ground, but far what I would consider an ideal business. And what I realised in that process of just getting absorbed is that I never really ended up spending much time with my kids. And they were only little at that stage. I had two young girls, and they were only small. And we'd made the decision that when they got to school age to actually homeschool our kids, which we did until they were, all of our kids, we got 3 kids, they're all adults now, but the idea was to homeschool them. We did that right until the last 2 years of school, where they went to high school, their chosen high school. So, business, the idea of being in business is to really, for improving our quality of life and spend time and being able to impact on those around me, but somehow it wasn't really happening. And so I started really, and what I found was, it became a bit of a habit, a process. In those days we had a calendar that was going back 20 years. I don't think we had digital calendars. It was still a desktop calendar. And when you're making appointments and you're meeting with people, those demands on your time, they're always coming from left field and right field and left field and right field. And whenever there's a space, invariably it just gets filled up. That's a learning. And I'll make an analogy with that with storage. So, one of the businesses I have is an inspection business, and I always joke about it. When you go into these houses, no matter how big they are, how many cupboards they've got, how big the shed is, how much storage space they've got, I never saw empty storage space. I never saw open a cupboard, a storage cupboard, and went, wow, look, these people only got it half used. I never went into a shed that had all this space. We're travelling around the countryside at the moment. We've got this very small teardrop camper. It's really small. And every space is filled. There's no empty space. And when I talk to people who've got very big caravans, every space is filled. There's never any empty space. So what happens, and the reason I made that analogy is that for some reason, regardless of how much space we have, it's always full. Everything's full. There's plenty of stuff to get, and you can put something in there. And I don't know if it's the way our brain's wired that we need to fill spaces. I think it is to a degree. So how does that relate to time, your time and your calendar? Well, it's the same thing. If you've got a calendar, and you've got lots of space on it, and your business, lots of demands, it just gets full. So the week, you might start with a certain range of meetings and open times, and then it just fills up, and then it fills up, and then the next week fills up. And so what happens with the storage issue is that if you went to buy something else or open a cupboard and you can't get it into that cupboard, you wouldn't put it in there, would you? You might not actually buy any more stuff. You said, there's nowhere to put it. I don't have anywhere to put it. And certainly as we're travelling around the countryside now, we've sort of got everything we need. Can't really buy any other stuff because if we do, we've got nowhere to put it, which is an issue. So the trick is, the question leading to, do you really want to work Fridays, is you may want to consider not working Fridays, doing something else. How do you do that? I know it sounds simple to do that. I can absolutely guarantee you that it will have no impact on your business. It'll have negative impact. The time that you spend away from the business, it does fill you up. It does recharge you. It gives you a little bit of motivation and step back because you're doing something that you love, things that you enjoy, things that bring you some joy. So the best way to handle it, if it's something that you go, well, I really don't want to work Fridays, you start by just blocking it out in your calendar. And that's what I remember doing that when I started. I'm thinking I wanted to spend some, and I called it Kids Day. So what I did was I blocked out my Friday, just put Kids Day in it, and I didn't really tell anyone about it. It was back, over 2 decades ago, longer than that. It probably wasn't the thing to be taking time out with your family, running a business, and you had to be seen to be busy and be involved. So I didn't really make a big deal of it. I just blocked it out in my calendar. And then when something popped up to say, can we catch up? I'm free Friday morning. I would look at my calendar and I'd just go, Friday's blocked out. Friday's full. I've already got, activities on Friday. And so what had happened was it became a habit. Because if it was empty, if I said, I'll spend some time with my kids on the Friday, but I hadn't actually put it into the calendar, it would just fill up. No question. There's something that pop up. How about Friday morning, Friday afternoon? And it took me a little while to realise that by putting it in the calendar, actually sticking it in the calendar, it became an event. And whenever something popped up, I'd look at it, it would remind me. And I just say to people, I can't do it on Friday, let's catch up Monday morning, Monday afternoon, whenever. And it became a process. And then eventually I'd sort of worked out that there was no real reason to hide it. As the MD of the business, I just said, look, I don't really work Fridays. I'm spending time with my family or my kids on that day. And that became pretty much a habit then of doing that routine where I just didn't work Fridays. And so I gave my kids, they were quite young at that stage, permission to hold me accountable. If we went out and I was on calls. They'd say, look, you're with us, today's our time, spend time with us. That's what you said you'd be doing. So I actually gave them that permission to hold me accountable. And I did that. My oldest daughter now is 27, my other daughter's 25, my son is 18. I did that with all three of them. First, it was the two of them. Then Dante, my son, joined in. And then for a period of time, there was three of them. And then Tessa was older and then she moved off, so it was only the two of them. And then it was only really with Dante, and sort of probably continued up until the time he was about 10 or 11 or 12, thereabouts, you know. And it was a really good process. So it was a rhythm, it was an expected thing, and we did lots of cool stuff. And so what it did for my relationship with my children is it sort of role modeled that they are important to me. And I don't just say that, I actually spend time with them. So if you're in a relationship with your friends, family, partner, and you can say you're really important to me, but we don't put time towards them, then do they believe that we're really important? They're really important to us. And I heard, you know, often with people who, you know, because they're formative with kids, if you've had kids or you've got grown kids or you're in the stage of having small kids, you know, up until the age, I think you can really have an impact on building a strong relationship with them up until the age of 12 or 13, 14. And values. After that, they sort of start becoming their own person, transitioning into sort of adulthood, and you've sort of either got the foundation or you don't. So that's my belief. So it was a really good opportunity, and what I learned was not working Fridays didn't really have an impact on anything. And then over the period of time in the different businesses that I ran, I got into, I just didn't work Fridays. It was always blocked out. And so the Fridays, you know, the question is, do you really want to work Fridays? If you really want to work Fridays because you believe if you don't, you might have some guilt around it, which I did initially, but that sort of moved on when I could see the positive benefits of spending time on stuff that I loved. And I realised it didn't really have any impact on the business at all because I stepped back. The time spent on that Friday with my kids over those many years enabled me to build really good relationships with them, which, and as they become adults, they become mates, friends, you know, and you've got a strong relationship with your kids, which is really important. But you might you might not have kids, or your kids might be growing. You might be interested in golf or surfing or camping, or you know, there might be some sort of, you know, charitable organisation. Or you might want to learn something. You know, you love gardening, whatever it is. You know, for some reason we've sort of, you know, that's what drives us to get into business, is to be able to spend time on and with people and doing stuff we love, but we think of it as a bit of a destination. You know, when I get to that point, when my business gets to this level, when I sell the business, instead of thinking a bit of a long game with a bit of a journey. So what I'd really suggest, that have a think about that question. Do you really need to work Fridays? And if you sort of have a feeling that you don't, and you're not really sure why you stop working Fridays, then just start the process. Put something in your calendar. If it's stuff with people that you want to spend time with your family, your kids, with mates, doing something else, stick it in the calendar. It might not be Friday, it might be Wednesday, it might be Wednesday morning, it might be Wednesday afternoon, whatever sort of works for your calendar. But just start the process. But the trick is to put it in your calendar, and as you know, create a habit around it. And the way to create a habit around it is by doing it at least, you know, they say habit gets formed after 30 days. You know, if you didn't work that particular day in that calendarized event for say 2 months, it'll become habit. And then now my team knows, they've known for a while that I don't actually work Fridays. So my team basically, they don't contact me. If they do, they always start the conversation, hey, I'm sorry, I know it's Friday. Just wanted to touch base and quick question. So in essence, they sort of know that that's a day that I don't actually work, and I haven't done it for decades. And now and my kids are all grown up. They've all got their own lives. They're doing their own things. I still don't really, not really working. Probably expanded out now as I'm travelling, but hadn't done the Friday thing for many, many days, many, many years. So I might spend time with my family, my sister, catch up with my sister and go out for breakfast, go and catch up with my mother who might need some help, do some pruning around her place, catch up with family, just do a project around the house, whatever it is, just something that takes you away from the normal headspace. I like working with my hands. I do a lot of building, a lot of working with wood, and I find that balances out the headspace stuff that we do by using hands and activity like that. So I'll frame it up again. Do you really want to work Fridays? I can guarantee you that if you build a routine of not working 5 days a week, whether it's a Friday or whether it's a Wednesday, you set it up as a calendarized item and you spend that time doing something that is important to you, it'll have a real positive impact on your mental attitude. It will freshen you up for your own business. It actually gives you some space away from the business, which is actually a really positive thing when you immerse yourself in activity like that. And it won't have any negative impact on your business. That's been my learnings from that process. All right, thanks for listening. Hope that gave you a bit of a different insight. Of course, and if you can peel away a day a week for doing stuff that you love, then that's a super, super positive. Take care. Catch up with you in the next episode. Ciao for now.